This is my first vlog and this morning pupunta ng wildlife to meet my classmates there. Hindi ako sanay mag-vlog. Napilitan lang kasi ako, so please bear with this.
A few moments later.
Mapuan ka na mag-ano?
Nagpuan na ako.
Ay, Rico.
Hingal na po si Ate Jester. Kailangan nyo ba na maraming carbs? Hi guys. Titingnan natin kung ano ang ginagawa nila. Hi guys.
Hi!
Kumakain sila ng carbs. Yeah, carbs yan. Kain carbs. Carbs yan.
Carbs ka ng carbs. Anong carbs na yan?
Hilingin na na siya.
Plants use carbon dioxide from the air, water from the soil, and energy from the sun to produce carbohydrates and oxygen through a process called photosynthesis. Carbohydrates are organic compounds that contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in the ratio of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom for every 1 carbon atom. 2 or more sugar molecules can be assembled to form increasingly complex carbohydrates. The 2 main types of carbohydrates in food are simple carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates. Carbohydrates store energy, which is released when their bonds are broken. Some carbohydrates physically support cells and tissues, and others provide distinguishing characteristics of different cell types.
How about yung sugar? Carbohydrates pa siya?
Di ko alam sir. Di ko alam sir. Monosaccharide, also known as simple sugars, is the smallest type of carbohydrate and it contains 3 to 7 carbons. Most monosaccharide names end with the suffix "-ose". Examples of these are glucose, fructose, and galactose. Monosaccharides are classified based on the position of their carbonyl group and the number of carbons in the backbone. Aldoses have a carbonyl group at the end of the carbon chain, and ketoses have a carbonyl group in the middle of the carbon chain. Depending on the number of carbons in the sugar, they also may be known as trioses, 3 carbons, pentoses, 5 carbons, and or hexoses, 6 carbons. Glucose is the most common simple sugar and has a chemical formula of C6H12O6. In humans, glucose is an important source of energy. During cellular respiration, energy is released from glucose, and that energy is used to help make adenosine triphosphate or ATP. Plants synthesize glucose using carbon dioxide and water, and glucose in turn is used for energy requirements for the plant. Excess glucose is often stored as starch and is catabolized by humans and other animals that feed on plants. Galactose and fructose are other common monosaccharides. Galactose is found in milk sugars and fructose is found in fruit sugars. Although glucose, galactose, and fructose all have the same chemical formula, they differ structurally and chemically, and they are known as isomers. Because of the different arrangement of functional groups around an asymmetric carbon, all of these monosaccharides have more than one asymmetric carbon.
Di ba, Carl, ang mga halaman ay meron ding cellulose na isang uri ng carbohydrates? Paano yun?
Palamig ka muna. Palamig ka muna.
Polysaccharides are polymeric carbohydrate structures formed of repeating units, either monosaccharides or disaccharides, joined together by glycosidic bonds. They range in structure from linear to highly branched. Let's look at some common polysaccharides. Cellulose is a polysaccharide found in all plants. Cellulose is the most abundant natural polymer in the world. Cellulose is made of beta-glucose monomers, where the hydroxyl group on carbon 1 points up. The beta-glucose monomers in cellulose produce a nearly linear molecule. The hydroxyl groups on the glucose monomers can form from hydrogen bonds to hydroxyl groups on another cellulose molecule. Rigid bonds enable cellulose strands to form fibers that give plants and trees a rigid structure. Other polysaccharides can also be used for structural support. Invertebrate animals like snails, shellfish, and insects have exoskeletons made of a substance called chitin. The monomers in a chitin molecule are a beta-glucose derivative with a different functional group at carbon 2. The beta linkages between the monomers mean that chitin is structurally similar to cellulose. Starch is another plant polysaccharide. Plants produce starch to store energy, but it's also an important source of energy for organisms that eat those plants. Starch is made of alpha-glucose monomers, where the hydroxyl group on carbon 1 points down. Even though starch and cellulose are made from nearly identical monomers, each has a unique structure that determines its properties and function. The alpha-glucose monomers in starch produce a helical, compact structure that's used for energy storage in plants. A similar molecule called glycogen is found in animal cells that need to store a lot of energy, like muscle cells. Glycogen is a polymer of alpha-D-glucose with frequent branches of carbon 6. Since glycogen is even more dense than starch, it's more efficient form of energy storage for organisms that move around. The important thing to remember about polysaccharides is the relationship between their structure and function. Polysaccharides generally perform two functions: energy storage and structural support. Starch and glycogen are highly compact polymers that are used for energy storage. Cellulose and chitin are linear polymers that are used for structural support in plants and animals, respectively.
So, yun yung carbohydrates. Ano ang naalala niyo sa carbohydrates?
A few moments later.
Okay, so actually guys, carbohydrates, this is any type or any one of the various substances that found in certain foods such as rice, potato, or any root crops, and bread, kaya ng bread na kinain natin kanina. These carbohydrates provide our body with heat and energy, and actually the common elements that can be found in the carbohydrates are the carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So that's it.
Plastic.
Thank you for watching our video. Don't forget to hit like button and subscribe. Sir JM, Plat 1. Bye-bye.